This man, Teodoro Nguema Obiang Mangue, is the son of the president of Equatorial Guinea. He is also the first vice president of the country. His father is the longest serving president in the whole world. His son, the vice president of Equatorial Guinea, bought a mansion in Paris, which is currently valued at 100 million euros, which has been confiscated by the French government. Ladies and gentlemen, hear me right. The mansion is not 100 million Ghana cedis nor naira. It is 100 million euros, which is equivalent to 115 million US dollars. As to how this guy got that kind of money to buy that type of mansion in Paris, I think we all know that already. Now, the government of Equatorial Guinea claims the mansion is a diplomatic real estate bought for the state, but the French government argues that the property is Obiang's private asset. For that reason, ladies and gentlemen, the French government categorized the ownership of the building to have come from a corrupt source and therefore confiscated the property. The French government not only confiscated it, but went ahead to put the property up for sale. And the Equatorial Guinea government took France to the International Criminal Court for justice. Ladies and gentlemen, it is crazy. The questions to ask are just too many if you care about African politics. I don't even know where to start from, with especially all the research work I've done. How did the guy get that kind of money in the first place? Why didn't the French government also take interest in the source of the funds for the purchase of this property, the first place, before allowing him to buy? Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. French government, why didn't you stop the purchase in the first place? However, can the French government just tag any property of Africans with whatsoever scandal that they want and confiscate it in their country? Is that what they do? Can we do same here in Africa to French companies? Ladies and gentlemen, the questions are just many, but I need you to hear this other part as well. Kindly come with me, ladies and gentlemen. Hi, I'm Cyrus, and this is Tuntum Network in Accra, Ghana. Kindly subscribe if today is your first time with me. Thank you so much. And now, did you know that this isn't the first time this situation is happening between the Equatorial Guinea vice president and the French government? This is not even the first time. The highest court of France, as a matter of fact, ladies and gentlemen, in 2021, upheld 2 lower court convictions of the vice president of Equatorial Guinea for embezzlement and money laundering, moving money from public funds from Equatorial Guinea to France. The French government therefore seized assets from Obiang's network, including luxury cars, Michael Jackson's memorabilia, and other things, totaling an amount of 150 million euros in France alone. And it's not only France which has had this problem with the vice president of Equatorial Guinea. The US has it too. So far, France now joins the United States and Switzerland in holding a combined 237 million euros in recovered assets from this vice president, which must be returned to benefit the people of Equatorial Guinea, ladies and gentlemen. But they cannot return it because the president and his son are still in charge of the government of the country of Equatorial Guinea. So the country's money will continue to sit there until there is a change of government. Ladies and gentlemen, how do you reconcile this when a country like Equatorial Guinea, with over 70% of its population living below the poverty line, has a president and a vice president who are son and father, who have this kind of millions of dollars to buy mansions in Europe and in America, when the rest of the country could use that money? How do you make meaning of this, ladies and gentlemen? How can black president be so wicked? This is the one country in the world where the gap between the rich and the poor is just immeasurable. You can't even measure it. Those who are connected to the government and to the state oil have so much wealth and they live on a higher per capita income. And those who are not live in abject poverty. There is no water supply and medical aid to more than half of the country's population. There is zero transparency in their oil industry as well. Ladies and gentlemen, the president and politicians of this country, Equatorial Guinea, have been the same people in office for nearly 46 years. Ladies and gentlemen, that is a God-forsaken country. I feel so bad for Equatorial Guinea. The son has become even more corrupt than the father. The same thing is happening in Cameroon. Well, Paul Biya's son is the kingpin in timber exports in the country, making millions of euros. Ladies and gentlemen. So one son runs timber business in Cameroon and the other runs oil in Equatorial Guinea. How does a country such as this come out of this situation? Ladies and gentlemen, what ideas do you have? Let's hear from you in the comments. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, this problem is not just peculiar to Equatorial Guinea in Africa. Let me shock you with this list. It's a very short list, but very important list. Let's begin with Libya. In 2011, the United States government froze over $30 billion worth of Libyan government assets under President Obama's presidency. And in January of this year, Belgium's court lifted seizure on approximately 15 billion euros of Libyan investment authority funds held at Euroclear Brussels following a successful legal appeal. The Ivory Coast, Nigeria, Zimbabwe, DRC, and Liberia all have their assets frozen for lack of legitimate source to make claims. In some cases, they are frozen due to sanctions placed on those countries. Ladies and gentlemen, it baffles me all the time. I don't know how to process it. How did these investments get into those places in the first place? Why are presidents in Africa consistently moving monies to Western countries? How did it come to this, ladies and gentlemen? Corruption is everywhere in the world. I get that. Except that politicians in Africa, when they steal state funds, move it to the West. Meanwhile, no Western politician will move stolen funds to any part of Africa for any reason. Why is this so, ladies and gentlemen? And did you know that up until 2011, the president of Equatorial Guinea's son claimed ownership of this mansion until the issue of embezzlement and money laundering came up? All that while, he was the owner of the mansion until he got scrutinized, ladies and gentlemen. What will happen if all our presidents are scrutinized? These people have made it a hobby to steal from Africa and send it over to the West. That's where they do their shopping and buy their mansions and live in exclusive communities. Meanwhile, in their home countries, children and animals drink from the same muddy streams. These people have become aliens in their own countries. They hardly live in those countries. They've hijacked the systems to make them money and leave the people. They've just left them to their plight. Equatorial Guinea is less than 2 million population, producing 50 to 65,000 barrels of crude oil per day, which should be enough to take care of all their people. But ladies and gentlemen, that's not what's happening there. The revenue that is generated from their oil and gold and bauxite diamonds are immediately sent over to the West for properties and investment. That is the reality for many African countries as well. They can't even use the money to develop their own country. This is how bad leadership in Africa has become. I don't side with the vice president of Equatorial Guinea. Neither do I side with what the French government is doing. If they stop moving our money there, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very, very sure this wouldn't be a conversation to have in the future. Tell me I'm wrong. I'll leave it here for now and hope to hear from you in the comments. Thank you so much for taking time to watch this. I'll come your way, God willing, very soon. God bless us all and God help us all. Be sure to subscribe and click on the notification bell for more of my videos. It's bye-bye for now.